What if the richest man you know is actually the poorest? Marcus had a corner office on the 40th floor. He walked in every morning and shook no one's hand. He nodded. A nod was faster. He kept his coat on indoors because taking it off meant staying, and staying meant talking, and talking cost time. At his desk, he lined up 3 pens in a row, always the same way, points facing the window. When his assistant brought coffee, he slid the cup to the corner without looking up. He had not looked a person in the eyes for so long that he had stopped noticing eyes at all. There was a man named Thomas who cleaned the building at night. Marcus passed him in the lobby every evening and did not slow down. The money came first thing every morning in numbers on a screen, and Marcus moved it. He bought, he sold. He pressed his thumb against the glass and watched green lines climb. When they climbed, he pressed again. He arrived at 6 and left at 9. He ate at his desk, the same lunch, eaten with one hand while the other hand worked. On weekends, he drove to the largest of his 3 houses and walked through rooms he never used. He straightened a painting that was already straight. He opened the refrigerator, looked inside, closed it, opened it again. The house made no sound. He had built it that way on purpose. Thick walls, no neighbors, and now he stood in the middle of all that quiet with his hand flat against his own chest and held it there. He called his daughter on her birthday. She did not pick up. He left a message and checked the time while he spoke. He sent money instead of words, because money was a thing he knew how to send. The transfer went through in 2 seconds. He waited to feel something. He felt the small click of completion, and then he reached for the screen again. He kept moving. He cancelled the doctor. He cancelled lunch with an old colleague. He cancelled, and called it discipline. Then the market broke. It did not break slowly. One Tuesday, the green lines turned red, and Marcus did the thing his hands knew. He pressed his thumb to the glass. The lines kept falling. He pressed again, harder, the way he had pressed 10,000 times to make them climb. They did not climb. He pressed a 3rd time, and a 4th, and his thumb left a smudge on the screen, and still the red came down like water. By Friday, the bank owned the houses. Marcus walked through the largest one a final time. He straightened the painting on the wall, the one that was already straight, and then he understood there was no reason to straighten it anymore, and he left it and walked out. The cars went, the office went, the view from the 40th floor went, and the brick of the city closed over the place where it had been. The phone was the strangest part. For 20 years, it had buzzed 40 times before breakfast. Now Marcus held it in his hand and waited. It did not buzz. He set it face up on the table where he could see it. An hour passed. It stayed dark. The people who had nodded back at him stopped nodding because there was nothing left to nod at. Marcus moved into one rented room with a window facing a brick wall. He sat on the edge of a narrow bed and did the only thing his hands still knew. He lined up 3 pens on the windowsill, points facing the brick. He had not eaten a real meal in 2 days when he heard a knock. It was Thomas. Thomas came in carrying a pot wrapped in a towel, and the smell of it filled the small room before he had even set it down. Soup. He had learned where Marcus lived from someone at the building, and he had cooked, and he had come. For a moment, Marcus only looked at him. He knew the face. He had passed it in the lobby 1,000 times, and never once stopped the man who cleaned the floors at night, the same man who, 20 years ago, had loaded furniture beside him in the back of a truck. Of all the people who had nodded at Marcus when he was rich, not one had come. This man, whom he had walked past every evening, had cooked and climbed the stairs and knocked. Marcus did not know what to say, so he said the wrong thing. "I can't pay you for this." Tomas pulled the one chair to the bed and sat. He did not seem to hear the word pay. He poured soup into the single bowl Marcus owned and held it out. And when Marcus reached for it, Tomas did not let go right away. For 1 second, they both held the warm bowl between them. "You remember the truck?" Tomas said. "That summer we moved furniture together. The air conditioning was broken, and it was so hot in the back that we couldn't breathe." He smiled. "One day we had no money, you and me. Between us we had one sandwich, so we split it. I had lost my knife, so we cut it in half with a key, a dirty old key, and we ate it sitting on the floor of that truck." He nodded at the bowl in Marcus's hands. "That was the best meal of my life, not because of the food, because of who I ate it with." He let go of the bowl. "A big table means nothing if you sit there alone, Marcus. A table is for people. You had the longest table in the city and no one to fill it. Tonight you have one small bowl and someone across from you meal that is worth more." He smiled. "And tonight you are not alone either, so eat, please." Marcus ate. His hand shook at first, then it stopped shaking. He did not become a new man that night. He did not get his houses back. The next morning, the room still faced the brick wall. The phone on the table was still dark, but he got up. On the floor was the pot Tomas had left. It was still half full. Marcus picked it up and carried it into the hall. He stopped at the door next to his. An old woman lived there. He had passed her door many times and never knocked. This time, he knocked. She opened the door. Marcus held out a bowl of warm soup. "Have you eaten?" he asked. She reached for the bowl, and Marcus did not let go right away. For one moment, they both held the warm bowl between two hands. Now he understood what Tomas had given him. Back in his room, the 3 pens were still on the windowsill. He picked one up. He did not line up the other 2. He sat down and wrote a letter to his daughter, real words this time, not money. He read it once. He did not know if she would ever write back. He folded it, and he sent it anyway. He left the 2 pens where they lay. He did not make them straight. The people beside us matter more than anything we own. Marcus learned it too late to save his money, but in time to save what mattered. If this story stayed with you, there are more like it waiting here, and I'd love for you to stay. So here's a small idea for tomorrow. Call the person you keep meaning to call, and before you hang up, make sure they know they matter to you. That's all. I'll see you in the next story.